So welcome to this UTD. So I don't know if you're familiar with the UTD, but the goal is to kick off with a 30-minute approximately presentation, followed by a hands-on workshop where you will have the chance to get real hands-on experience with the solution. So I've invited also Tom van Ginneken from Palo Alto Networks. He will join us for the first hour. So let's make I will try to make it as interactive as possible, but it's difficult to keep an eye on the chat window. So maybe Tom can have a look. If not possible, I will have a look at the questions later on.
I will look at the chat and the questions, Stephen. No problem.
Okay, so let's kick off. First thing to mention is, okay, this is a UTD. This is a presentation of a big half hour. But if you want to know more, okay, so also together with the hands-on workshop, you will have a good view of or a good idea of what the solution does. But if you want to know more, you can always find 2 courses of Palo Alto Networks. The first one is a self-paced course. It's the EDU 118, and we also have the same course but in instructor-led variant, which is teach by myself. For now, this one is without labs because Palo Alto has no labs available yet. But by September, October, I hope we will have a full instructor-led course, including labs. So we have scheduled the course in October, so you can have a look at our website. But if you can't wait, you can also follow the 118, which is also valuable, of course. But this is without labs, and it's following movies. Okay, so if you want to follow that course, you go to the Learning Center and you search for Prisma Access SASE Security, and you can register for it, and then you can launch it. I think you're familiar with these kind of online courses. Okay. Okay, so let's kick off with the presentation. So currently, companies are using the cloud. And you will see that applications and also infrastructure is in general is leaving the data center and moving to the cloud. A good example is, for example, SaaS applications such as Office 365 and Salesforce, but also other mobile workforces are moving to Azure, AWS, and variants. On the other hand, we see that users are becoming mobile, more and more mobile, and they're also working from multiple devices. They're working from different locations like airports. And now with what we see with Corona, of course, we see that a lot of people are working from home. Okay, if in the past 5% was working from home, now almost 100% is working from home. And this has its challenges, of course. What we also see, and by 24, it's foreseen that 60% of enterprises will have implemented SD-WAN to have a more optimal route to the internet and to applications on the internet in order to get better performance. Now, existing approaches today, when we try to secure mobile workforces and cloud applications, in combination with the data center on-prem and in the cloud, this is very complex. So customers are adopting different point solutions like web proxies, VPNs. They often use MPLS backhauling to help to get things going and to provide access and security. This is not only complex, but users often have a poor user experience because, yeah, with MPLS backhauling, you can imagine that latency is often not ideal. And also this introduces security gaps because MPLS itself is not providing security, it's only providing connectivity. So this is an introduction to SASE. What is SASE? So SASE is a term invented by Gartner a few years ago. And in fact, it's the convergence of security as a service and network as a service. So different products make up a SASE solution. So products like, for example, firewall as a service, DNS security, DLP, and so on. This is security as a service. And on the other hand, we have SD-WAN, quality of service, PBF, which make up network as a service. Now, how has Palo Alto implemented this? So we all know, or I don't know, but I think you're familiar with the next generation firewall as it is today. So we already had solutions such as SSL decryption, sandboxing like Wildfire, DLP, DNS security. This is also part of Prisma Access, which is the SASE solution of Palo Alto Networks. So this is part of the security as a service layer. Okay, so firewall as a service. On the other hand, we already had SD-WAN, which we now have also implemented in the next generation firewall on-premise, but also SSL VPN, IPsec VPN. This is the same thing as we know from the next generation firewall. Same with PBF and quality of service. Now, something about the architecture. So we have now our gateways, our next generation firewalls, which used to be on premise. You're also familiar with the VM series, of course, but when we talk about Prisma Access, you can compare it with VM series, but these firewalls are provisioned by Palo Alto as a SaaS service. So you don't have to take care of any provisioning. You don't have to spin them up. This is all done by Palo Alto. And the orchestration part and the security policy, this is, yeah, let's wait maybe for the next slide, but this is done using Panorama, okay? On the other hand, we have our SaaS applications, and Prisma SaaS promises very good connections to these SaaS applications. For example, they offer SLAs to Office 365 and to G Suite and to Salesforce, for example, and they promise SLAs less than 30 milliseconds from Prisma Access to those SaaS applications. Okay. Now, on the other hand, we have the internet, of course. So we break out to the internet via Prisma Access. So all these gateways, these Palo Alto firewalls, they are no longer logging to the firewall itself because you cannot access these firewalls. They are logging to the Cortex data lake. Okay, so the new name of the logging service. Okay, so with Panorama, what you're going to do, you're going to read the logs out of the Cortex data lake. But I think it will become more clear on the next slide. So yeah, one thing I forgot, we have our branch offices, which we can connect to Prisma Access. Okay, and we can also connect our mobile users to Prisma Access. So this becomes clear here in this slide. So we have our Prisma Access Cloud, okay? And we have our branch offices, which set up a VPN towards the Prisma Access Cloud, okay? and they arrive on a firewall with a security policy in place. On the other hand, we also have our, this is for remote networks. Okay, so we have our branch offices connecting to Prisma Access. The security policy and also the provisioning of these locations in Prisma Access is orchestrated from Panorama. So Panorama is a key component of Prisma Access. Okay, and logging is sent to the Cortex data lake, and Panorama can access the logs from Cortex data lake. Okay, regarding security subscriptions, everything we know from the typical subscriptions from the next generation firewall is included. This is threat prevention, this is URL filtering, a wildfire, and DNS security. Okay, I hope I haven't forgot anything. Okay, so the only thing you need is Panorama on-premise or in the cloud, and we will see that there is also a full cloud variant of Panorama available. Okay, and on the other hand, which is it's not visible on this slide, we also have Prisma Access for mobile users, and then they will use the Global Protect client, but I have more information on one of the next slides. So Prisma is truly a cloud native SASE. So why has it to be cloud native? Because it requires something like some things like auto scaling. Auto scaling, for example, now with COVID-19, we need a lot more resources to keep up with the amount of mobile users. So we will need to scale out our infrastructure, and this is only possible in the cloud. Okay, so dynamic scaling is very important. Okay. Now, a little bit about the connectivity architecture of Prisma Access. So like I said, we have SLAs to different SaaS applications like Office 365, Salesforce, and so on. And we also have, if you're familiar with the single pass security processing architecture of the firewall, which allows us to perform content ID and malware scanning in a very performant way. This is also available in Prisma SaaS, okay? This is something we know from the on-premise next generation firewall. So we have a performance security policy while enabling content inspection like malware scanning, and also like threat prevention and URL filtering. Now, this is how you would use Prisma Access in the real world. So we have the Prisma Access Cloud. We have our data center. Here we have our data center or our HQ, or this can also be our workforces in Amazon or Azure, for example. On the other hand, we have our branch offices. These are the remote networks, okay? And on the right side, we have the mobile users. Now, mobile users use the Global Protect agent to connect to Prisma Access. And the remote networks, they can be connected with an IPsec tunnel. Okay, it's important to know that here we see a next generation firewall of Palo Alto networks, but this is not needed as such. We can also use any IPsec enabled device as long as it can set up an IPsec tunnel to Prisma Access. It's okay, because here we end up on a firewall with a security policy in place, which is defined by Panorama. Okay, so you don't need a real firewall here. Of course, it will work, but you can make sure that here a security policy is installed. Okay, on the lower side we have our data center, and this is also connected with the IPsec tunnel. Okay, and here you typically have an on-premise firewall installed because a service connection is not protected by a security policy in Prisma Access. So we have a security policy in place for the remote networks. We also have a security policy in place for users connecting with Global Protect, but the service connection to the data center is not firewalled. Okay, so we need a firewall here. Now, a little bit more about that single pass security processing engine I mentioned earlier. So what is it? So other vendors, and I think most of them, if not all, they also have a lot of security features in place, but they're also always placed as a service chain. So every security feature is placed in series, so it's executed one after the other. Okay, and this approach introduces a lot of latency. Now, Palo Alto does all these things at the same time. For example, all the content ID features like data filtering, URL filtering, threat prevention, they are executed all at the same time, and this makes it a very performant solution. So yeah, if you have followed one of my presentation, I always mention this. So we have always the app ID throughput, which is 100%, and then we have the threat prevention throughput, which is typically 50% of the app ID throughput. And this is because of this architecture. So the 50% threat prevention throughput is really a worst case scenario, while, for example, another firewall which doesn't have that approach, with every feature enabled, you lose performance. So you will typically go far below 50%, even to 10 or 5% if every feature is enabled. So this is really a real advantage compared with the competition. Now, Prisma Access is also multi-tenant. Multi-tenancy is an important component of a SASE solution. And what does that mean for Prisma Access? So the management plane and the orchestration and the auto-scaling, this is multi-tenant managed. So you can set up different customers as an integrator on Prisma Access, but every customer will have their own dedicated data plane. So the data plane for the customer is single tenant. Okay, and it also will scale independently. Okay, this means that other customers can never impact the performance of other customers. Sorry, so one customer can never impact the performance of another customer. Okay, and also every customer will receive its own assigned IP addresses, so you don't have to worry about other customers getting blacklisted somewhere on the internet. Okay, and this is also useful because on a SaaS application, like for example Office 365, you can configure additional security policies, like for example only allowing connections from a certain IP address. So then you can enter the IP addresses which you have been assigned by Palo Alto Networks on Prisma Access. Sorry. Okay, so Prisma Access runs both on AWS and Google Cloud. So that has the advantage of having more than 100 locations in more than 76 countries. Okay, so if you connect, for example, with Global Protect to Prisma Access, by default, you will always connect to the closest location to your location. Okay, this has the advantage of having a good speed, a good latency, a good connection, but also with regards to local content, this can be important. So if you connect to Prisma Access from Belgium, you will connect to the Prisma Access POP in Belgium, and you will arrive on the Belgian Google site, for example, and you will be able to access the European content or the Belgian content. So you will never be blocked by geolocation. On the other hand, a US citizen who travels to Belgium and wants to connect to Prisma Access in the US, he will have the possibility to do that. Okay, so you can, for example, give them the possibility to choose between the different locations. Okay, so Prisma Access is using the Google high-speed backbone to interconnect all these sites and also to break out to the internet. And Google has now the most performant network, I think, of all the cloud providers currently. So this will ensure a very good performance. Okay, so to go back to the use cases. For mobile users, what are the key differentiators? If we compare it, for example, to other solutions from competitors, these are often web proxies in the clouds. So a web proxy, of course, it only allows to use web applications. The Prisma Access is really a next generation firewall in the cloud. So you can use it to send all applications, okay, to the internet and to the data center. I already mentioned the great user experience because of the different clouds POPs available. Okay, and inline security, that's always on. Okay, that's by default, and that's best practice. That will make sure that all traffic is sent first to Prisma Access before leaving towards the internet. Okay, because if you turn off Global Protect, you are no longer protected by the next generation features of Palo Alto. Okay, so you can make sure that the user has no control of the status of the tunnel. Okay, if you want that, of course. Okay, so scaling workflows, like with Corona now, this is very important. So, but in normal situations, we also have users shifting locations, traveling, maybe, yeah, we have to keep up with the amount of users. Now with Corona, we don't have to worry about that because everything is taken care of by Prisma Access. So the auto scaling, you don't have to take any measures. This is all done automatically by Palo Alto Networks. On the other hand, when COVID is gone and we all go to our work locations again, Prisma Access will also make sure that everything is scaled down, and this is done, yeah, in real time. Okay. So here in this slide, we see that, for example, so each curve here, each color represents a data plane of Prisma Access. So if there are additional workloads needed, additional data planes will be spinned up, okay, without any intervention needed by you as an administrator. Okay, so the second use case is remote networks. So we had mobile users. Now we have
sorry,
remote.
Just a second. I need to.
As soon as you can, because you can let us all know. So what if, to answer your upfront conversation, we need to be ready to pivot this in a couple.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I think it's not the question, Stephen. I think something went wrong with the microphone.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
Okay.
Unless there are other questions.
Yeah, Steve, this is Floris. Are you sure about the security being included in the subscription because it's not mentioned in the price list?
Slide.
Yeah, it's true, Tom. I'm not saying something which is wrong.
I will check the price, but it's in the slide deck even. So I will double check Floris, but as far as I know it is, but I will double check.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I know with the on-premise firewall, you need to buy the subscriptions, and with VM series you have the subscription bundles. But as far as I understood, these are all included in Prisma Access by default.
Okay, it's just that it's not in the description in the price list, but that can be in all description, obviously, because it still says GPCS in it. So
yeah. Okay, so the second use case, remote networks. Of course, we have the same improved user experience because it's the same principle. And we have lower operational costs. Of course, it depends on the price of the MPLS network, of course, but I can imagine that in the majority of the countries, Prisma Access can be more or less expensive than MPLS. But what is also important, we have security. Okay, MPLS is not providing security; it's only providing connectivity. Okay, and of course we also have the improved connections to the SaaS applications, which is, I think, today not something which is important. Okay, and you can still access private resources in the data center because the data center is connected with a service connection. Okay, something about the scaling of the workflow of a remote network. So once you want to connect a remote network, the only thing you need to do is set up a VPN connection towards Prisma Access. And on Prisma Access, you do it via Panorama. You assign an amount of bandwidth to that remote location. Okay, so you buy a pool of bandwidth and you can divide that pool of bandwidth among your different locations. And suppose that another location all of a sudden needs more bandwidth, you can just reconfigure Prisma Access and it's done for you immediately in minutes. Okay.
Steve, a small intermezzo. So Floris, to answer your question, DNS security is included.
okay, thanks, Tom.
And what about the other things?
So includes advanced threat prevention, web filtering, sandboxing, DNS security, credential theft prevention, DLP, and next generation firewall policies based on user to application and host information profiles. So that's all there. So a lot of things.
It's all there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I said, Panorama is the central orchestration point. So if you have already on-premise firewalls or VM series on-premise or in the cloud, if you already have them in place and you already have Panorama, yeah, it makes sense to use that same Panorama to manage Prisma Access. It's recommended to use it that way. If you are fully cloud-born and don't have on-premise firewalls, there is also a cloud-managed variant, which has almost the same features as Panorama, as the normal Panorama, but you cannot use that cloud-managed Panorama to manage on-premise firewalls, not yet. Okay, but I think in a few years, the goal is to move fully or at least partially to that, or give customers the choice to move to a cloud-managed Panorama. But for now, you cannot manage on-premise firewalls with the cloud-managed Panorama. Okay, SD-WAN. SD-WAN, as you know, it's available on hardware firewalls for some time now, I think since 9.1. And you can use Prisma Access as a SD-WAN hub. Okay, so you don't have to, you don't need Prisma Access to make use of the SD-WAN features of Palo Alto Networks, but you can use it as an SD-WAN hub. I don't know, Tom, if you want to add something here.
So in this case, if you look at Prisma Access, so it can be used as let's say a hub for the complete SD-WAN solution. So all over the world we have the SD-WAN devices, and instead of setting up our own hub, we can provide that hub, let's say, as a service by using Prisma Access. Okay, Prisma Access can then be used in this scenario to, for example, if you look at the site in Australia, to go from Australia to the Prisma Access cloud, locally connected, of course, somewhere with local presence, and then go in a secure way to the internet or to the other offices. Of course, since it's SD-WAN, the box you see on the slide can also have other connectivity options to connect to each other or connect to the HQ. But Prisma Access can be used to provide, for example, secure internet access, or to provide secure branch-to-branch access or branch-to-HQ access. That's it, Stephen.
Yes. Okay, and also another use case is just a VPN, of course. So you can connect branch offices, you can connect mobile users. So as I just mentioned, you can use it as an SD-WAN hub. And clean pipe is something which is typically for ISPs. It's an option to connect ISPs to Prisma Access using a native connection directly to Google Cloud, okay, which is more performant than just an IPsec connection over the internet. Okay, so it will also provide the option to provide SLAs for that connection. So this is for ISPs. Now, I don't know if you know that feature, but clientless VPN is a feature of Global Protect, which is available for some years now. So clientless VPN allows you to connect just using a browser instead of using the Global Protect client, and to publish web applications. So that can sometimes be useful for third parties or for just web applications for your users. So this is also available in Prisma Access, okay, as it is a key component of Global Protect. And also this is included by default. And as we have the same features of the next generation firewall, because it is the next generation firewall, of course, we have user ID, we have app ID, we even have HIP. So HIP is normally a paid feature of Global Protect on the hardware firewalls, but it is included in Prisma Access. So HIP is the host checking part of Global Protect. It's also available for you to use. So all this together gives you the zero trust network access. Okay, so, and of course we also have full inspection using content ID features, like threat prevention and so on. Okay, and then quality of service, which is also available. So you can apply quality of service to your remote branch connections, but also to your data center. Okay, like I said, we cannot do firewalling on a service connection to your data center, but on the other end, we still can do quality of service. Okay, also on a service connection to the data center. Because users can quickly saturate the network, so you can, for example, prioritize Office 365 or voice over IP over YouTube and other traffic. Okay, so this is also available, included in Prisma Access. And quality of service based on App ID is really, very useful. Okay, like DNS security included, like Tom confirmed, also in Prisma Access. We know that from the hardware firewalls and from the VM series as a paid subscription. So with DNS security, we can not only block bad domains, but we can also, for example, stop domain generation algorithms with machine learning, and we can block DNS tunneling, because with DNS tunneling you can infiltrate and exfiltrate data, because the firewall sees that as legitimate DNS traffic. Okay, but with DNS security in place, this also can be stopped. Okay, so firewall as a service, of course, this is pretty core functionality of Prisma Access. But the good thing here, or the powerful thing, is that okay, no matter where you connect to, no matter which location, we always have the security policy in place because it's managed by one single location, which is Panorama. Okay, so you always have the same security policy in place, which is really really good. Of course, you can also you can always have different policies for different locations, but if you want, you can have the same policy everywhere, of course. So threat prevention, also a key component, which is also available in Prisma Access. You all know these things, I think. So we, of course, SSL decryption. I've seen it last when I logged into Prisma Access. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but SSL decryption is supported for remote branches up to 500 megabits. So you can also connect a branch office, for example, with a gigabit connection. But I think SSL decryption is only supported up to 500 megabits. Is that true?
I don't know the numbers by heart, Stephen, so I have to. But what I do know is that if you have a branch office and there is, for example, one firewall up and running for this branch office, and if you enable SSL decryption, and we see that the load is becoming too high on that single firewall, let's say, we do automatically scale up. So don't worry about the load that SSL decryption will put on the firewalls. If we need more load, if the customer needs more load, we will automatically, completely transparently spin up extra firewalls in the backend so that the customer can properly use SSL decryption without having any impact. So that's
yeah, but we're talking about remote offices. I can imagine that we don't have a lot of branch offices which have connectivity with more than 500 megabits. So I don't think even that will be an issue. So DLP is also built into Prisma Access. So this works with patterns, and Palo Alto Networks has announced a lot of improvements on DLP, related to DLP in the upcoming releases. I don't have a lot of information about these new features, but yeah, that's what I heard. So we'll expect a lot of improvements regarding DLP.
Maybe to comment on this, so we are designing, and it's already been designed, let's say, a new DLP infrastructure where everything can be centrally configured in some kind of let's say cloud application, central repository of DLP signatures and things you want to monitor. The first solution that was using DLP was Prisma SASE, and now Prisma Access is also going to use this new DLP service, so that if data leaves the company via Prisma Access, it can be monitored. There are some examples on the slide. It's an old slide, this one. It's the official slide in the slide, but you see, for example, for the people from Belgium, that there are already some Belgium DLP signatures in place already. But of course, this will be increased in the future. Okay.
Okay, and then I think we already the last slide of the presentation, which is the CASB. So Prisma Access, but also a hardware firewall can act as an inline CASB, because as we know the application, we can block or allow certain SaaS applications, and we can even allow and block certain functions within a SaaS application. For example, Office 365, we can block, for example, uploading and so on, or just an example. So we can block certain sub functionalities within a SaaS application. And we can also, for example, redirect if you want to access, for example, your personal Dropbox. we can redirect you to the company Dropbox flavor, or for example, Box or Office 365. This is a feature which is already available for a few years. This is an inline CASB. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, just what I want to mention is that so Prisma Access is inline, so it will detect, let's say, all your data and connections in motion when it goes through Prisma Access. But you also have something called Prisma SASE. So Prisma SASE, it's a different product, but it completes, let's say, it's a Prisma Access solution where we can use Prisma SASE to scan data at rest that is already inside the other SaaS applications like Dropbox, Box, Office 365. So the thing you see on the right hand side, the API over there we can use Prisma SaaS and use APIs to connect, for example, to Box to see if there are any threats inside, maybe malicious files inside Box or Dropbox or Office 365, or if there's any confidential information that's being shared that should not be shared with the outside world. So that's what we can do with Prisma SaaS, but that's a different product, of course. But it's like it's a combination of the two that makes it very interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I was about to come to that. So with Prisma SaaS, you can also you can show what is shared with the outside world, and you can, for example, also send your files to Wildfire to inspect it for malware. So you have indeed the combination. So that was my last slide. Are there any questions regarding to what we just showed you? Is it clear what the solution does and what the advantages are, or do you have any thoughts?
It's clear for me. Thanks, Dean.